tonight will be the most beautiful day.
All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for stopping by this evening for our Ukraine War Report for day 139. The day is July 12th of 2022. Again, 139 days. This very bloody conflict has been continuing on. Very thankful for all of you stopping by tonight to get updated on what's been going on in the war on the ground in Ukraine. We're going to get everybody filled in. If you haven't seen yesterday's report, we kind of did a little bit of catch-up on what's been going on over the past week or so. I'll be uploading yesterday's report this evening. It's actually uploading as we're speaking now, so if you guys would like to get caught up, I recommend later to go to watch that report. You'll be able to get caught up on everything that's been going on over the past about 7 days or so. We kind of did a little bit of a comprehensive catch-up, so to speak, and got everybody up to speed. We're going to be covering all of our primary headlines and getting everybody filled in on what's been going on over the past about 12 to 24 hours. The fighting in the east continues. The fighting in the south continues as well. That's our main headline this evening is the Ukrainian strikes on Russian ammo depot targets in the south of the country. We're also getting breaking news in over the past few hours of explosions and detonations being reported in Luhansk. Possibly an ammo depot has been struck there as well, so we're going to be covering all of that. We'll start the evening, as we usually do, by going through our primary headlines and getting everybody filled in on just kind of the key topics of what's been going on over the past about 12 to 24 hours. And then, of course, we'll hop over into our community aggregated news brought to us by community members and some of our intel analysts over there on our Discord server, discord.gg/Nemico. And, of course, we'll finish up the night going through our open source intelligence reports from sources like Live UA Map, which you see on the screen behind me currently. Before we get into it, if you haven't already, hit that like button. It's the best way to get notified. Best way to notify the algorithm, get the algorithm's attention, get this information out to more people. It's very important that we inform the public about what's going on in Ukraine, and so that people can put pressure on their local politicians so that we can get more aid and munitions and weapons over to the Ukrainian forces that need them the most right now as we're bringing you this report. They need our help, so that's why we're here. We're here to educate you guys and get you guys informed on what is going on. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Best way to get notified when new videos or new streams go live. I know a lot of you haven't been getting notifications, even though you've clicked the notification bell and clicked the all setting, so it seems to be some problems there on YouTube's end. So I'll be talking to YouTube about that later this week, see if we can get that resolved, because we definitely want you guys to be able to get notified when these nightly reports come out. Best way to tune in for these, if you're not getting those notifications, is to check back around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when we start these reports every weekday night. We don't do reports on the weekends, but we do reports Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's about 3 a.m. Ukraine time. So depending on where you're tuning in from, you can convert that time there to figure out when we're going to be live. Otherwise, I do post in the Discord server in the announcement channel when we're about to go live, so you can always tune in there to see when we're going to be on. Without further ado, we're going to get right into our primary headlines for this evening. I'm going to get everybody kind of caught up on the key topics about what's been going on over the past 12 to 24 hours or so. We have a poll running tonight over in our YouTube live chat. If you haven't already, go ahead and cast your vote in that poll. Actually, somebody just casted their vote there and brought us up to about 50-50 even split there right now on that poll. So please, guys, if you can, go over there and vote, and then I'll be covering. I'll cover that poll right when we jump into our community topics, so that I don't forget about it, because I think I forgot about last week's poll. However, tonight's poll asks, do you think the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the south will be successful? I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you think, and if those Ukrainian forces there will be able to pull off that counteroffensive near Kherson in the southern region there. A reminder, they have been able to successfully take back some territory in that area over the past few months here. I would actually say it's been a while here that they've been chipping away at some of this Russian-held territory. You can see everything shaded in blue is territory that the Ukrainians have managed to take back from the Russians. However, it's been a very a slow grind there on behalf of the Russians. They're not really able to take territory in any significant amount. It's a very slow grind. They take a little bit at a time. The Ukrainians usually push back. Kind of this game of cat and mouse, this tit-for-tat exchange of shelling and bombardment, followed by ground troops moving in to try to secure areas, and then only to be pushed back out a few hours later by the Ukrainians. It's been a repeating pattern that we've been seeing for the past few months now. We'll get into the specifics on that later this evening in the report. However, first we're going to get to all of our primary headlines. Big news over the past 24 to 48 hours, of course, those Russian missile attacks in Chasiv Yar. The death toll from those Russian missile attacks on that 5-story apartment building in that town of Chasiv Yar in eastern Ukraine has risen to at least 34. I believe it was 30 last night when I gave our report yesterday evening. Emergency crews working to pull people from the rubble. Zelensky accused Moscow of deliberately targeting civilians in the attack, which destroyed 3 buildings in a residential quarter in that town. The latest victim, a 9-year-old child, was retrieved from the wreckage on Monday evening. That came from Ukraine's State Emergency Services that made that statement. And next up here, at least 7 people were reportedly killed by Ukrainian missile strike on a large ammunition store in the town of Nova Hakhovka, which we reported on that yesterday as well. So we're now getting some casualty reports coming from those strikes. Again, these are Ukrainian strikes. They're striking back on territory that was taken by the Russians. I believe that's in separatist territory in the Donbass, in Nova Hakhovka there. So actually, that's in the Russian. So that's also down in the south. So that's kind of in the east-south there, Nova Hakhovka. The claims of fatalities were made by Russian-installed administration in that town and could not be independently verified. So we haven't got independently verified, confirmed reports on the actual casualty numbers yet. But the Russians, the Russian administration, the Russian government that has been installed there in that town is again putting out that at least 7 people were reportedly killed by that Ukrainian missile strike. Again, that hasn't been independently verified, though footage on social media showed that large explosion, which we showed you guys last night. It lit up the night sky there, burning ammunition, towering smoke. You could see debris being flung for quite some distance there in those videos. Pro-Russian officials and some Ukrainian commentators were quick to suggest that the explosion was the result of a strike by Ukraine's newly supplied U.S. HIMARS missile systems, which we've been talking about for many weeks now. A number of recent strikes on ammunition warehouses and Russian command centers have been attributed to those HIMARS systems. We have had an absolutely mind-boggling amount over the past week of these ammo depots and Russian command posts being hit by these missile systems. Just in the past 12 hours, I have a few that I'm going to be talking about this evening, including the one in Luhansk region, which you see there on screen. Russia has claimed to have killed a significant number of foreign mercenaries fighting in Ukraine the last 3 weeks, including 23 from Great Britain. It also claims to have killed at least 180 servicemen in Ukraine's 30th Mechanized Brigade in the last 24 hours and have to have shot down 7 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles. Again, these are reports coming from the Russian side of things, and we do have a hard time trying to independently verify those numbers, as we also have sometimes a hard time independently verifying some of the numbers that the Ukrainians put out about Russian casualties. Again, I don't think we're going to have concrete numbers on these casualty numbers until the end of the war and everything is said and done. During the fog of war, during the heat of the moment, it's very hard to get concrete reports. Often it's like days later we finally know, okay, it wasn't 16 people, it was 20-something people that died at, say, this strike or that strike. And so again, we're going to have to wait to get more information now. I don't like to say that anything is confirmed until, at least a few weeks have gone by and investigators have been able to, fully comb through the wreckage, the rubble, and be able to get a head count of all the casualty numbers from these strikes. Speaking of strikes, at least 12 people have been injured by shelling in Mykolaiv, according to Regional Governor Vitaly Kim. Again, that came from a report today. An official at the self-proclaimed People's Republic of Donetsk says the appeals over the death sentences of Aiden Aslan, Sean Pinner, and Sadun Brahim will be dealt within a month. Again, we've been covering the situation there with those two British nationals, and I believe the other was a Moroccan national there that were fighting in Ukraine, were captured as mercenaries and are now facing the death sentence there. Again, the DPR, that Donetsk People's Republic, they're now saying that they are going to deal out those death sentences within a month. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss said she utterly condemns the sentencing, stating, quote, "They are prisoners of war. This is a sham judgment with absolutely no legitimacy." Again, negotiations to secure the release of those young men are still underway as we bring you this report. As I talked about in yesterday's report, Ukraine plans to gather a, quote, million-strong fighting force equipped with Western weapons to recapture the southern territory from Russia. Again, that's what our poll is related to in tonight's live chat. We're asking everybody if you think that counteroffensive will be successful in the south. Arguably, they have already, in the past just few hours, they have started that counteroffensive, as we've seen strikes on multiple locations in the Kherson region, which I will talk about in a little bit here. Again, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky ordered the military to recover occupied areas around the Black Sea coast that are vital to the country's economy. So that's a really big story right now, is that they're prepping for this possible counteroffensive. Military delegations from Turkey, Russia, and Ukraine, in a little bit of geopolitical news here, will meet in Istanbul with the United Nations delegation on Wednesday, the 13th of July, to discuss the safe export of Ukrainian grain, according to Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar. Again, I don't expect we're going to get any headway here from the Russians at these negotiations. I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those things where the Russians, everybody meets up. There's a delegation sent, and they have talks, but then nothing really comes of it. What I personally expect to happen is that the Russians will again demand Ukrainian surrender in most of those regions in trade for them releasing that grain from those ports. I don't think the Russians are going to give up control over those grain shipments. Again, it remains to be seen. We'll be covering that information later this week when it occurs. At least 6 people have died after a Russian rocket attack on Monday morning on Kharkiv in northeast Ukraine, according to Ukraine's Prosecutor General's office. Among those killed were a father and his 17-year-old son, who were driving on their way to pick up a certificate for his university admission. Ukrainian regional police official Serhiy Bolaniev said Mayor Ihor Terekov said shelling struck civilian infrastructure, including a commercial property and a tire repair shop. These are places which had no military significance, he added. So, talking more about Donetsk and the Donbass region, in a statement from the local governor there in the Donetsk region, he said about 80% of the residents of Ukraine's eastern region of Donetsk have fled. Pavlo Kirilenko said about 340,000 people, or about 20% of the local population, before Russia's full-scale invasion began on the 24th of February, remain in the region. Again, thank you to everybody that's tuning in this evening. We're just getting started with our primary headlines here. If you haven't already, hit that like button and share the stream if you like what you're seeing. Best way to get this information out to more people. In more geopolitical news here, Germany and the Czech Republic have signed a joint declaration pledging to overcome Russian fossil fuel dependency and to accelerate the transition to low-carbon energy. Quote, "We are going to finalize the agreement on solidarity measures to safeguard the security of gas supply between our countries prior to the start of the upcoming winter season," the declaration read. And some more geopolitical news here. As I reported on yesterday, Vladimir Putin signed a decree making it easier for citizens of Ukraine to acquire Russian citizenship. Previously, a simplified procedure applied to only residents of the self-proclaimed breakaway territories, the Donetsk People's Republic, aka the DPR, and the Luhansk People's Republic, aka the LPR, in the eastern regions of Ukraine, as well as the Russian-occupied regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia. So those are those Russian-held territories that they've took post the February 24th invasion, speaking to Kherson region and Zaporizhia region. More geopolitical news here. Putin will visit Iran next week. The Kremlin said a day after the U.S. warned that Tehran could provide Moscow with drones for its actions in Ukraine. Again, Russia looking to turn to Iran to hopefully receive some shipments of unmanned aerial vehicles, some weapons-capable unmanned aerial vehicles that they will then be directly deploying into Ukraine, again, as they're most likely running short of their Orlan 10 drone systems, which many Ukrainian forces have shot down since the invasion began. The Russian president plans to meet with his Turkish counterpart, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, after the pair discussed efforts to facilitate grain exports from Ukraine, according to the Kremlin. As I mentioned a few moments ago, I don't believe we're going to see very much headway given by the Russians on this topic, but it remains to be seen. They're looking, again, at this UN plan that's possibly being set up, again, as a sea corridor for Ukrainian grain exports through the Black Sea. Again, we're going to have to it remains to be seen if any progress can be made on those negotiations. Speaking of Lithuania, the situation in Lithuania, which I've been covering for the past week or two here, Lithuania has expanded those restrictions officially now on trade through its territories to Russia's Kaliningrad exclave, as phase-ins on that earlier announced EU sanctions have began. Goods sanctions from Monday morning include concrete, wood, alcohol, and alcohol-based industrial chemicals. The governor of Kaliningrad, Anton Alekhinov, has proposed a total ban on the movement of goods between the three Baltic states and Russia in response to what authorities in the exclave have called, quote, a blockade, as we've talked about a few times over recent weeks here. In more kind of geopolitical chess piece moving here, Latvia may increase its defense spending and introduce compulsory military service regardless of gender to contain security risks arising from Russia. So we've not only heard of NATO with this massive mobilization, many of the Baltic states are stepping up their readiness levels. They're mobilizing forces, along those borders with Russia. They're beefing up security. So now Latvia as well is looking to increase its defense spending, introduce that compulsory military service, again, regardless of gender, as they said in that press release there, again, to contain these direct security risks arising from Russia. Reuters actually reported earlier that security is, and this came from President Egelis Ledvits of Latvia. He said, he told Reuters in a report earlier that security is the priority of our politics today, and plans to raise the defense budget to 2.5% of their GDP, which he says, quote, may not be enough. The Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, met Zelensky in Kiev to reiterate his country's support for Ukraine now and in the years to come. The war in Ukraine may last longer than anyone had hoped, Rutte warned during a visit to the capital. After their meeting with Zelensky, the president there, Ukrainian president, welcomed the constructive talks with the Dutch leader and the decision to supply weapons to Ukraine. Again, in another press release by the United Nations today, reiterating their commitments, they say they will monitor the war in Ukraine for violations against children, including killings, injuries, recruitment, rape, and other forms of sexual violence. In that statement today, again, there's many investigations that are currently ongoing within Russian territory. Not Russian territory, but within Ukrainian territory, as they look to investigate in a lot of the areas incidents that occurred in a lot of the areas where Russian forces have pulled out in recent months. We're speaking about areas in and around Kiev, areas in the north around Kharkiv, and amongst others. So that about wraps up our primary key topic headlines for today. Of course, the main big stories here being these strikes on Russian ammo depots in the south in preparation for what we believe is a counterattack being planned by the Ukrainian forces here in the south of the country. Again, here you can see 3 hours ago, explosions and further detonations were reported in Luhansk. Again, Nova Hakovka here, which is kind of in the eastern region of Kherson here, is where another ammo depot was struck over, I believe it was Sunday or early Monday that occurred. We reported on that yesterday and yesterday evening's report. So there's many strikes occurring on Russian-held territory and even Russian Federation territory across Ukrainian borders. The Ukrainians have been really putting these missile systems, especially these HIMAR missile systems, to work, getting their use out of them, very much so, as they take the fight to a lot of Russian weapon stockpiles and ammo stockpiles. It's one of the best strategies I think they have at their disposal. If they try to if they can choke off the Russian ammunition supply, if they can choke off the supply of weapon systems, Russia will have a harder time making progress capturing territory in Ukraine. So now we're going to switch over into our community aggregated reporting here, and we'll get switched over to our big screen so you guys can see everything we are looking at on the map here. If you would like to follow along with the posts that we're about to bring you, you can find them in the Situation Room on the Discord server. That's discord.gg/Nemico. And if you would like to contribute to the nightly reports and contribute to the community aggregated reporting, you can do so over there on the Situation Room in the Discord server. Feel free. You got to pick up your Intel Analyst rank in the Welcome channel before you can post in there, but everybody's welcome to post as long as it's relevant and you think it's worth mentioning in a nightly report. We do have moderators that vet and go through a lot of those posts to make sure that we're not getting false information and things that have, like old news that has been reposted. So make sure, of course, that what you're posting is valuable and worth a look. And we just might cover it on these nightly reports. We don't always have time to go through all of them, as we get quite a few that get posted in there on a daily basis, but we try to go through as many of them as we possibly can. Our first report this evening comes from me, actually. I posted this a short while ago before the stream started. This was sent to me earlier today. And it was posted yesterday by the New York City Emergency Management Preparedness Agency. And so this is directly from the New York City government here in the States, for those of you outside the States. I thought it would be interesting to show this on tonight's stream because I believe it's evidence that we are stepping in to definitely like a new Cold War scenario, a new Cold War mentality. I haven't seen a video like this posted by a U.S. city. I don't think I've heard of something like this since the 60s. I don't know. I could be wrong, but let's take a look at it, and you guys can decide for yourself. Now, when talking about the nuclear topic, I like us to exercise restraint as much as possible. Keep our heads, keep our heads calm, and not get overly, don't start panicking and get overly, worried about things like this. Because again, the chances of a all-out nuclear war and all-out nuclear confrontation remain low, as the idea of assured mutual destruction remains. However, when I see a video like this come out, it makes me question why. Why are they posting it now? Why are they posting it now? And what does it mean? Okay, and so I thought it'd be interesting to open up tonight's community aggregated reporting with this short video here. This again comes from New York City Emergency Management. This was posted yesterday. Okay, it was picked up by New York Post. A whole bunch of mainstream news articles picked this up. It's kind of scary here, but don't panic and don't immediately think that this means that we're going to get into some kind of nuclear confrontation with Russia. But it is an interesting sign that there are people, there are officials in some capacity somewhere thinking about this very thing. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video again, posted by New York City Emergency Management. It's called Nuclear Preparedness PSA. This is a public service announcement. We'll take a look at it now.
So there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why, just know that the big one has hit, okay? So what do? There are 3 important steps that I want you to remember. Step 1, get inside fast. You, your friends, your family, get inside. And no, staying in the car is not an option. You need to get into a building and move away from the windows. Step 2, stay inside. Shut all doors and windows. Have a basement? Head there. If you don't have one, get as far into the middle of the building as possible. If you were outside after the blast, get clean immediately. Remove and bag all outer clothing to keep radioactive dust or ash away from your body. Step 3, stay tuned. Follow media for more information. Don't forget to sign up for Notify NYC for official alerts and updates. And don't go outside until officials say it's safe. All right, you've got this.
Okay, so again, I like to reiterate, really, like the question here is are they putting this out directly because of the current geopolitical climate and the situation that's going on with Ukraine, Russia, the U.S., etc., or is this just a standard cookie cutter release every 5 to 10 years, a new PSA video, for official, means, on their main channels here? Is this just kind of like a thing that, has been in the works for a while and doesn't have anything directly to do with the current geopolitical situation, with what's going on with Russia, or is this, directly because of the possibility that we might get into a nuclear confrontation? I know we've, over the past, 5 months that we've been covering this war, we've seen all sorts of rhetoric coming from Russian mainstream media, Russian mainstream news outlets saying things like, we need to just, like politicians over there and officials over there calling for Moscow to launch nukes on New York City, and basically saying we need to nuke them, and we need to launch the nukes now, and rhetoric like we're going to turn them into radioactive ash and things like that. So again, just some interesting content here. Again, coming from New York City Emergency Management, I thought it was kind of interesting to show you guys. Just something to keep in mind, really that we're kind of in this new mentality and that we've kind of shifted back to this kind of Cold War mentality, so to speak, of thinking that, hey, this is a possibility and we need to prepare for it. This possibility that we might see more of this stuff in the coming months as this war drags on and as things potentially look to heat up. Our next post here comes from a user by the name of Carbon on the Discord server in the Situation Room. This is video from Bakhmut with the caption here saying "just insane." I believe it shows us some fighting and shelling that is happening in Bakhmut.
Куда вы хуярите, вы твари, блядь? Что, по нам, что ли, блядь? Сядьте, блядь, садитесь. Сережа, сядь!
So you can hear some very heavy shelling. What looks to be either shelling or possibly MLRS bombardment here. Yeah, that definitely looks like a fairly significant multiple launch rocket system bombardment there. Just the sheer amount of impacts there that I see leads me to believe that it's an MLRS strike.
Сережа, сядь! Ёб твою мать, блядь, твари!
Yeah, absolutely devastating footage there of Bakhmut. Again, I expect us to see some reports on our open source map here from Bakhmut later this evening. And speaking of live UA map, we actually have one here posted by Unstinkable. This talks about explosions reported near Chornobaivka, Kherson Airport. So that's in the region of Kherson Airport. We'll look more at that when we cover our open source reporting here. So again, we have some content here, again coming from Unstinkable. This talks about the strikes that occurred in Luhansk earlier. And I believe we have a couple videos showing these strikes that occurred. Here's one here. Here's, again, the video of those strikes occurring in Luhansk here.
И еще один.
Again, off in the distance there, you can see those strikes occurring. You can see continuous bombardment there and fires and smoke rising from the area.
И опять все возле моего дома.
So if you see here, this is the approximate location where those strikes occurred, near Chornobaivka, again in Luhansk. Apparently Russian air defense was working to stop some of those incoming missiles. However, unsuccessfully, as we can see, those strikes did hit targets on the ground.
Александровка. Целый.
We have another video here coming from All Digits on YouTube. Take a look at this as well. This is more video, a series of explosions in ammo depots, again, in occupied Luhansk. Play that again for you. So yeah, pretty big ammo depot. Unstinkable in the chat actually says, as you can see, pretty big ammo depot got hit. MLRS ammo flying off everywhere. So that could be what we witnessed there. Definitely another big ammo depot strike. So we've had, what, 3? I think it's 3 in the past 24 hours, if not more than that, if I'm not mistaken. We actually have a video here, I think. Actually, no, this is a picture just of the sky lighting up there from those detonations reported at that ammo depot in Luhansk. A lot of content came from those strikes. Explosions and fire reported in Luhansk. Again, this came from earlier. This actually just come with a video attached, so let's check that out. You can see a fire burning over there from the direction. I believe this is also the same, yeah, this is the same area there. Chornobaivka, which it occurred a little bit north of that town, I believe. These videos you guys are seeing now occurred tonight. They occurred at 4:47 p.m. Eastern My Time. So about 4 hours ago is when a lot of these videos were released. So I take it the strikes probably occurred probably within the 5 to 6 hours ago mark. So that's our most recent ammo depot strike there that we have. Ukrainian forces striking Russian-held ammo and weapons caches. Our next post here comes from longtime power poster Kayuka. Big shout out to Kayuka. Thank you for sending this over. Talked about 5 Ukrainians freed from Russian captivity in Kherson Oblast. Defense Ministry's Intelligence Directorate reported on July 12th that a, quote, special operation was conducted to free 5 Ukrainians from Russian captivity in the occupied southern region. So they got those guys out of there. Luckily, again, 5 Ukrainians have freed. I'm not sure if that was a prisoner exchange or if that was a forcible freeing, if they went and they, broke them out or whatever. But again, we'll probably hear more information on this by tomorrow. I'm guessing though that this was like a maybe a forward operating like post that was holding, somewhere along a front line that was holding some captured Ukrainian soldiers, and then some Ukrainian forces went in and secured the area and were able to retrieve those Ukrainian forces there. So again, 5 Ukrainians freed from Russian captivity in Kherson Oblast. Again, a lot of activity in the south. A lot of activity in the south near Kherson over the past, I would say, 48 to 72 hours, as the Ukrainians look to step up their movements there and move to possibly launch a large counteroffensive, a pretty sizable counteroffensive. Again, we have that poll going in the chat. I guess now would be a good time to report on that poll. Our poll in the live chat tonight says, do you think the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the south will be successful? For the most part, we had a pretty even split over tonight's report. It was about 50-50, but it comes in, I'm going to end the poll right about now, and it comes in at about 55, I think. 55% of you say yes, that counteroffensive will be successful, and 44% say no. So that's very interesting. Pretty even split there. We'll have to see if maybe if those numbers change in the coming days and weeks here. We might run that same poll again maybe a week from now to see what you guys think about the progress that they're making there in the south. I'm going to go ahead and post that over on the Discord Situation Room. I'm going to post that poll report there so you guys can see that information if you want to look at it. Out of 148 votes, 55% of you said yes, they will have success there. 44% said no. So very interesting there. Again, thank you to everybody that voted in tonight's poll. Big help there. Our next post here, again, comes from Kayuka, comes from dailycost.com, talks about the counteroffensive in Kherson, saying it is very, very real. We'll read a little bit about that to you guys here. Yesterday's update included a map of the Kherson area, so it may seem too early to be hitting it again. We're hitting it again. That's because on Monday, Ukrainian forces reportedly liberated the town of Kiselivka. In the last census, Kiselivka had a population of just over 2,500, compared to the Russian capture of a town like Severodonetsk, population 101,000 before the invasion. This may not seem like that big of a deal, and it's not. This isn't the capture of a major city. However, Kiselivka is important because it was one of the points where Russian forces had dug in, fortified the area, and established a line that Ukrainian forces had been unable to budge in weeks of fighting. Now, that line is broken. Rather than being comparable to the capture of Severodonetsk, this is more like when Russia breached Ukrainian defenses at Toshkivka, which wasn't the capture of a major city, but it set up the capture. It set up that capture. Kiselivka wasn't just one of Russia's 2 hardpoints along the M14 road running into the heart of Kherson. It may be the first time in this part of the battlefield that Ukrainian troops have successfully dislodged Russian forces from a well-fortified position. So again, proof in the pudding there that the Ukrainians are having some luck in some of those areas in the south, pushing these Russian forces back. And again, if we go over to our map here, you can clearly see that. A lot of these areas, I mean, they had pushed right up to Mykolaiv. Okay, like right up to the outskirts of the city. They were even looking to move onto some of these air bases here, some of these airports here to take them over. But the Ukrainian forces, as you can see, all this shaded blue here is territory that they have taken back from the Russian forces. Next post here, also coming from Kayuka. This comes from Kiev Independent. Talks about the mayor saying Russian military base in the village near Russian-occupied Melitopol is on fire. This came from today, saying Melitopol Mayor Ivan Fedorov said that the residents of Mirny, Zaporizhzhia Oblast, had heard about 25 explosions and seen thick black smoke rising from the area. So interesting there. We'll have to keep our eyes on that. We might have some reports from Melitopol on our open source map here in just a few moments. So again, from Ukrainiform.net, coming at us from Kayuka, of course, we have some more information. It's an article written up about another ammo depot that was destroyed in the Kherson region. The armed forces of Ukraine destroyed a Russian ammunition depot in the village of Charivny, Kherson region, following the successful destruction of the ammunition depot in Novokhovka. Another ammunition depot in Charnivy was hit by an artillery unit, the Operational Command South posted on Facebook. As noted, the situation in the south of Ukraine is dynamic, complicated, but controlled by the Ukrainian troops at this time. The enemy continues to conduct military operations along the occupied defense line in order to constrain the actions of Ukrainian troops. Russians open fire from tube artillery, MLRS, and periodically launch air strikes. So again, I think we've had like I think it's 3 or 4. I'm not sure here. About 3 that I know of, possibly more, because I've heard rumors of a few others. Ammo strikes on ammo depots and weapon caches in the south of the country and the east of the country over the past about 12 to 24 hours. So the Ukrainians are busy. They are really busy at the moment, taking the fight to those Russian weapons and munition stockpiles. Next post here comes from Tiger Eye 912. Thank you so much, Tiger Eye, for sending this over. It also comes from Ukrainiform.net. Talks about Zelensky meeting with Defense Minister of Poland. In the future, Ukraine-Poland relations will develop and the countries will become even closer. Again, this came from today. The Ministry of Defense of Poland supports the Ukrainian army, the strength of the armed forces of Ukraine. This confirms that we are together in the current difficult situation in this tragedy that is happening now in Ukraine due to Russian aggression. President Vladimir Zelensky said during a meeting with Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Defense of Poland, Mariusz Błaszczak. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. My Polish pronunciation is almost as bad as my Ukrainian pronunciation, so thank you for bearing with me on that one. The president expressed his belief that in the future, already in peacetime relations between Ukraine and Poland will develop and the countries will become even closer. The head of state is also confident in the strengthening of defense cooperation between the two states. You can see the meeting here which took place. The delegation meetings here between Zelensky and a lot of these country leaders have been very frequent over the past week or two here. I've noticed there's been a lot of talks being held right in Kiev. There's a lot of these presidents from the Baltic states and Poland, etc. They have balls. They're willing to go right into Ukraine. They're willing to go right to Kiev and have talks there in Kiev as a show of strength to say, hey, we're not scared to have our delegation sent right into the country of Ukraine. To show, basically the Ukraine's, their confidence in the Ukrainian forces and that they have control over not only the capital of Ukraine, but a lot of these cities that are right up against the front lines with these Russian forces. I mean, I've heard and seen about maybe 2 dozen delegations, investigative teams, reporters, journalists that are, sent right up to the front lines in Kharkiv. Maybe not directly onto the front line, but are stationed in Kharkiv and around the city, doing investigations there, doing reporting there, having talks with local officials there. And so, it's good to see this show of strength, this show of solidarity being made by countless countries and countless leaders right now. It's what we need. We need more of this. We need more talks like this to occur, so that the Ukrainians can say, "Hey, this is what we need." They can let us know what they need, and then we could send in supplies, we could send in aid, we could send in weapon systems, etc. Again, thank you, Tiger Eye, for posting that. Here's another one coming from Tiger Eye 912. I think it's worth a mention here. These are shame boards with photos of soldiers who refuse to fight in Ukraine appear in Russian military bases. So again, basically directly shaming Russian soldiers that have refused and may possibly fled the country and refused to fight in the war on Ukraine. So again, they're listing names here. You can see faces even listed up on the board as well. Some very interesting stuff there. Again, there's a shame board, which are appearing in Russian military bases. Very interesting. Our next post here comes from Pyrotech, longtime contributor. This comes from KievPost.com. Talks about new Ukrainian wheat crop hits 1 million tons, easing the spiking prices. This is good news when it comes to the grain situation and the food situation coming out of Ukraine. Ukrainian farmers have brought In the first million tons of the new harvest, Ukraine's Ministry of Agrarian Food Policy, Policy and Food announced on Friday, July 8th, most regions of Ukraine have begun harvesting early. According to the Delo newspaper, as of July 8th, farming enterprises had gathered 1.1 million tons of grain and legumes from 417,300 hectares, including 147,900 hectares of winter wheat. The Ukrainian Grain Association projects a grain crop of 69.4 million tons and envisages exports of 31.5 million tons. So again, I don't think that is. I don't think that's as much as they would normally have under peacetime, but that is good news that they are still able to produce that grain, and hopefully they're able to get it out of country. The real problem is, even if they can produce that grain, it has to leave on ships out of ports in the south of the country. And at the moment, with the Russian blockade, they're unable to do so. I've had a lot of people ask, okay, well, why can't they fly the grain out on planes? Well, that's just not feasible. It would take your typical pack of hamburger buns, or actually a more relatable thing here would be like your typical loaf of bread. Say it's $3-4 currently with the spiked prices. If that grain was coming off of airplanes, that loaf of bread might cost $30 or $40, even more than that. It costs a ton of money to ship things like grain by air. Usually, air freight is kept for things like computer parts and chips and things like that, things that have high value. Again, they could look at trucking the grain out of Ukraine. However, the problem with that is that a lot of trucks are being used for the war effort, for shipping supplies and humanitarian aid around the country. Another option I've seen is using rail. That is something that the Ukrainians could look into. However, I've heard reports that Ukraine uses a slightly different rail configuration than the rest of Europe, so there could be some problems there where they would have to change train cars, etc. So again, this is good news for the grain situation, but the real problem remains of the fact that we can't get that food, we can't get that grain out of Ukrainian territory. Our next post here comes from Pyrotech again on the Discord server. It comes from Euromaidan Press. It talks about Ukraine destroyed 14 Russian warehouses and bases in 2 weeks. Another collaborator blown up in the occupied Kharkiv Oblast. Ukrainian army liberates Ivanivka in Kherson Oblast. About 80% of civilians already evacuated from that Donetsk region. So again, this just goes to reiterate just how many warehouses, how many ammo depots, how many Russian command posts have been destroyed by strikes. I think primarily by these HIMAR rocket systems, which have allowed the Ukrainians to really start reaching out now and targeting these sites, which is integral to their success here in the future. If they can, as I said earlier in the show, if they can cut off, if they could choke off the supply of Russian ammunition, if they could choke off the supply of Russian weapon systems, etc., then they might have a winning chance here at some of these counteroffensives. Now, if you noticed earlier in the war, it was the same tactic that Russia was using. Okay, they were attempting at least to target sites within Ukraine where ammunition was being stored, where weapons were being brought into the country, etc. And so we're kind of seeing the same tactics now being used by the Ukrainian forces as they look to take the fight and put the pressure on the Russian military. So that about concludes our community aggregated reports. Actually, I have one more coming from Kayuka. As I scrolled up here, I noticed it. This is this one actually, as always, this is worth noting. So this is the latest defense intelligence report on the situation in Ukraine, coming from the United Kingdom Defense Intelligence, Ministry of Defense Intelligence here. It talks about, again, this is for July 12th, so this is for today. Russian troops continue to make small, incremental, very key word there, incremental territorial gains in Donetsk Oblast, with Russia claiming to have seized control over the town of Hirahoryivka. Russian forces also continued their assault along the E40 main supply route towards the cities of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk in the east there. Russian forces are likely maintaining military pressure on Ukrainian forces whilst regrouping and reconstituting for further offensives in the near future. Russian armed forces personnel shortages may be forcing the Russian MOD to turn to non-traditional recruitment. This includes recruiting personnel from Russian prisons for the Wagner private military company. If true, this move likely indicates the difficulties in replacing a significant number of Russian casualties. Earlier in the war, when the Russians had their Victory Day parade that we covered here on the stream, a lot of us expected Putin to announce a general mobilization, basically announcing a draft, basically looking to, take people from, just normal civilians and enlist them into the Russian military, draft them into the Russian military. We might still see something like that occur if things continue to get worse for them when it comes to troop losses. Again, I've heard a lot of different reports. I heard reports that in certain towns within Russia that they were offering very considerable, very large enlistment bonuses for troops to sign up for certain tank brigades because they just didn't have enough personnel to man a lot of these weapon systems. And again, so it's evidence like that. It's evidence like seeing here that they're talking about using prisoners, again, for some of these Wagner private military company groups like that. So again, we're seeing signs that the pressure is starting to be put on the Russian military. Now, here's something to consider, and here's something to keep in mind, is that the Russian military, they have a number of troops that they need to keep on standby, that they need to make sure that they can call up in the event of a larger war. Okay, so say a larger war occurs here between Russia and NATO, or say a conflict breaks out with Lithuania, and they need to send another sizable, say 300,000 to 500,000 troop force into Lithuania or somewhere else. If that were to occur, so they need to have troops on standby and be ready to do that. So they can't just send every able-bodied man, every able-bodied soldier they have to fight in Ukraine right now. So that's why they're doing these things. That's why they're looking to recruit more. That's why they're looking to use things like prisoners, etc. That's why they're taking conscripts from these separatist regions, is because they can't use all of their Russian forces. Not only is it bad for Putin politically, but it's bad for their military. They need to be able to keep a certain amount of forces at the ready within country in case a larger fight breaks out. It's the same with equipment as well. Okay, so that about concludes our community aggregated reporting for this evening. Again, big shout out, big thank you to everybody, to our power posters especially, to everybody that's been posting in the Situation Room over there on the Discord server. It's still to this day, I think it's one of the best places to get information almost in real time on what is going on in Ukraine. It's probably the fastest place, the fastest resource to get updates and news on what's going on. When these strikes occurred in and around Kherson here earlier, I mean, the Situation Room just lit up. We had, posts. We have every video angle imaginable. We have every report imaginable being posted over there. It's a great place to keep up to date. Again, you can join the Discord server. There's a link in the description below. That's discord.gg/Nemico, and you'll be able to join the Situation Room there and be able to take a look at those reports. Again, we don't have time always to go through all of them, but we do go through the majority of them, and if you'd like to look at all of them and look at all the news that's been going on in there today, you can, again, head over there to check that out. We're now going to sidestep over here onto our open source intelligence reports here coming from liveuamap.com. We're going to scroll down to about the past 12 hours. We're going to start here at the 13-hour mark, and we'll get everybody caught up in chronological order on what has been going on the ground in Ukraine. 13 hours ago, a fire at the military base of Mirny in the Melitopol district. As I reported on earlier, I knew we would have some reports on it here. So these are where those strikes occurred in Melitopol, near that air base. I believe it's this Melitopol air base here, military base. Actually, it could be right here at Mirny. It could be there as well. But there's been a few strikes that occurred there today in Melitopol. 11 hours ago, explosion and fire reported at Enohodar. And you can see a picture of that located here on screen, of that smoke rising from that explosion. You can see where that's located on the map here as well. Very busy conflict line there occurring. A lot of bombardments occurring over the past 12 to 24 hours in that region. 11 hours ago, 5 wounded as a result of shelling by Russian army in the industrial district of Kharkiv today, as you can see, located on the map there. Russians are still bombarding Kharkiv very heavily. 11 hours ago, fire in western Donetsk as a result of shelling. We have a video here to show you as well coming from Twitter. Actually, yep, here we go. Here's the video of that smoke rising. You can see some pictures there of the smoke rising as well after that strike there, again, in western Donetsk as a result of shelling. 10 hours ago, explosions at a warehouse in Donetsk. I'm pretty sure this was a... Let's look here on the map. So yes, this was on separatist-held territory. This very well could have been a smaller weapons or ammunition cache, as we see explosions that broke out there. Let's take a look at the video. You can see smoke rising there in the distance over what is believed to be that warehouse. Very possibly could have been a Russian ammunition depot and or weapons cache. Nine hours ago here, the U.S. announces additional $1.7 billion of aid to Ukraine in a statement made by the White House earlier today. That is probably one of the largest aid packages I've seen. I mean, usually it's like $300 million here, $300 million there, $800 million here, $1 billion there. $1.7 billion, it's almost $2 billion in aid. That's what we like to see. We like to see that they're continuing to increase the amount of aid heading into Ukraine. It's very important, very important. 9 hours ago, President Zelensky met with Defense Minister of Poland, which I reported on earlier in this evening. I believe there's a video, though, that we could show you. Comes from Telegram. Nice sturdy handshake there from Zelensky as usual.
Хочу подякувати, по-перше, за велику підтримку Польщі, яку Польща надає українським громадянам.
So again, it's really good. Again, I mentioned this earlier. It's good to see that these delegations are heading to Ukraine, that they're meeting in Kiev, and that talks are continuing to happen almost on a daily basis. These talks are occurring. They're talking about things like humanitarian aid, refugee crisis, munitions, weapons, etc. And it's important for these talks to be occurring, and it's important for talks to be happening here in the West too. As I've talked about this many times, it's important for us, the ones, those of us here, that are watching tonight's stream. It's important for us to get involved as well. Do things like call your local politicians, call your officials, and say, hey, Ukraine needs our help. We need to send more over there, and we need to send more weapons, more munitions, because otherwise this will end up being our fight. It won't just be the Ukrainians' fight. This will be directly our fight. It'll be a fight for all Europeans. It'll be a fight for the West as a whole, and so that's what we're trying to avoid here by increasing the amount of support we're sending over to Ukraine. 4 hours ago, shelling in Nikopol district near Marihanets. You can see here on screen. Actually, we had a video there. Let's take a look here on Telegram. So it's a video here from Dnieper Operative. Pretty cool name here on Twitter. Again, you can hear the shelling occurring off in the distance there. Couldn't really see any of the shelling there, but it has been geolocated. Again, a lot of activity happening here along this southern front. Again, 3 hours ago, as we reported on earlier tonight, explosions and fires reported in Luhansk, in the Luhansk region here. So you can see in the east of the country in Luhansk, and then also we have those strikes that occurred near Kherson. Let's take a look at the video here from this fire in Luhansk.
И, видимо, не попали. Упало что-то. Не сбили. Ой, еще один. Слышал?
Да.
Только где этот летит, покажите мне. Еще один.
And you can see that fire rising there above Luhansk. More explosions and further detonations reported in Luhansk. Again, this is believed to be an ammunition depot there that was struck. 3 hours ago, explosions reported near Chornobahivka in Kherson Airport. That's another area where we believe an ammo depot was struck. Fire at Nikopol, outskirts after Russian MLRS shelling. So again, multiple strikes near Nikopol. Possibly the Russians may be looking to strike military targets there. Possibly they'll look to jump across the river here. It remains to be seen. However, I don't think that they will do that. They might be just striking military targets in that area. Finishing up tonight, we talked about Bakhmut earlier this evening. In fact, I had a video for you, I believe, from Bakhmut. But you can see here the official report saying heavy shelling occurring in Bakhmut. If we scroll down here to 16 hours ago, you can see all of the evening reports talking about the strikes that have occurred in clusters along the eastern front here and the southern front as well. And they are numerous. A lot of strikes here occurring all the way along from the northern border of Ukraine and Russia, all the way down to the south here by Mykolaiv. Just constant shelling, constant bombardment that we're seeing in those regions. That about sums up tonight's open source reports. And again, we'll conclude tonight's stream with a little bit of a Q&A from the live chats, both on YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. If you guys haven't already, make sure to hit the like button. Share this stream if you haven't. Best way to get this information out to more people. And then after you're done doing that, sound off in the live chat where you're tuning in from, what your fuel prices are looking like in your area, if they've gone up since yesterday or down since yesterday. And we'll cover that. And also let us know how you're doing, what you think about the counteroffensives going in Ukraine. And I'll read some of those comments from the live chats. Doompie coming in clutch as usual with our Ukrainian weather forecast for Kiev, the capital city of Ukraine. 0500, 15 degrees C, mostly cloudy, northwest winds 12 kilometers an hour. Sunrise 0500, sunset at 2107. As always, it's really awesome, Doompie, for you providing those weather reports for us. Miss Tiger Eye 912 says, I'm staying with my dad in the hospital tonight, so I've been preoccupied for a moment. Well, Miss Tiger Eye, I hope your father is doing well and that he gets better, and it's okay. I'll have these reports uploaded for you guys. In fact, I'm going to have yesterday's report, day 138, which was our weekly recap. I'm going to be posting that right after this is done, and I'll also be posting tonight's report right after this is done. So you guys will have 2 recorded live reports that you guys will be able to go back and watch uploaded to YouTube. I've been slacking there and getting those uploaded, but I had some technical issues last night and wasn't able to get it out for you guys. So I'm going to get that up tonight. Also making some changes to just the stream titles and the stream thumbnails and stuff in hopes to kind of streamline some things a little bit better. Mythical, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. It says, tuning in from Georgia, down to $4.09 at Walmart in Georgia. So that's good. It sounds like those fuel prices are coming down. Again, I mentioned this yesterday. I believe we're in a little bit of a adjustment period. So when the war first started, keep this in mind, guys. When the war first started, the fuel prices spiked, okay, and they got really high. That's when we started doing the gas price roundup thing in the chat, okay, because everybody was talking about gas prices and panicking about gas prices and oh my god, gas prices. And so I was like, okay, I guess I should cover gas prices a little bit because everybody's constantly asking about the fuel crisis and related to that directly is the food crisis, of course. But then we saw a little bit of a downtrend in the fuel prices, and I believe it was an adjustment there as countries looked to diversify their fuel imports away from Russia. Kind of that panic was, calmed down for about a period of 2 weeks, I think. We saw those prices fluctuate back down in the range of anywhere from 10 to 30 cents, depending on what state you were in. But then they went right back up. They reached $5 average across the country, I believe, and so that caused panic. It caused politicians to make moves across the globe to diversify fuel and to stimulate the fuel and the fuel economy, basically. And I think what we're seeing right now is that other adjustment period, okay? And so I think that's going to wear off. This is my theory, and I hope and pray that it doesn't happen. But my theory is that this adjustment period is going to end within the next possibly 2 to 3 weeks, and we're going to see fuel prices start to skyrocket back up again, okay? I'm hoping that does not happen, but I have a theory that that will occur as the late summer months, drag on here as we get into July and August. Tourism increases. We have the summer rush is still going, especially late August when it's hot. Everybody's traveling. There's a lot of tourism. People are going to beaches, etc. And I think we might see, at least here in the States, an increase. But across the globe, I think towards the end of the summer we will see a overall increase in fuel prices. But then we'll probably see another downtrend adjustment towards the fall. I think that's my theory. I hope it doesn't occur. I hope we see these fuel prices continue to trend down because that will help the food prices go down as well. Just Me says down to $4.79 for diesel, down $4.79 a gallon. Diesel is still $6 in Michigan. Yeah, in most states, diesel is still well over the $5-6 mark, from what I have heard. Mother Saki says Costco, $4.58, retail $5.39, Surprise, Arizona, so that's still pretty high. Australia, unleaded 91 is around $2 per liter of diesel, about $2.25 per liter. So again, I'm unable to put that in perspective with our U.S. gallon prices, but that does I think that is pretty high, if I'm not mistaken. Mother Saki also says eggs still about $3 a dozen. I think that's a little on the high end. I mean, at least for my area, that's a little bit on the high end. Michelle Welch asks a very good question. Says, Nemico, are you shutting down the stream tonight like last night? Actually, no. I plan to, as soon as this stream is done, we're going to get the cam stream back up, and I'll just change the title and the thumbnail like I usually do. But last night I had some technical difficulties, and I had to shut her down. But tonight I will be getting the 24/7 cam stream up, and I'm going to try to keep that up all week long if we can, with the exception of when I take it down prior to each night's report. So each night I take it down, we immediately put the live report up, but we're going to try to keep that up consistently over the course of the week for you guys. Doom Pie says $9.08 a gallon in the Netherlands. I think it went down with about 20 cents a gallon, I think. So that's not too bad. I mean, it's still pretty high there, but it's good to see you guys are having a little bit of a downtrend in those fuel prices. Mother Saki with an interesting comment here saying there was one station on the news last night in Phoenix, Arizona. They said they made plenty of profit in the early part of the war, and now they want to give back to the community, so their prices are $3.99 a gallon. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool to hear that. I wish more gas stations would be doing that. At least a little bit, at least take, just enough to kind of take the edge off. I know there's a lot of people suffering, people that commute, 60 to 100 miles a day to work. And, I mean, there's people that have, all day commutes, and they're just really they're not liking the fuel prices. It's really putting a damper on their budget. Utkin Atsila with a really good question here says, could the lack of volume of artillery from the Ukrainians make Russian troops complacent? So you're saying, could the lack of artillery and munitions from the Ukrainians make Russian troops complacent? Yeah, I believe we've seen that over the course of the war. Countless times, actually. I've seen where these reports where the Ukrainian forces on the ground say, we send one shell over and the Russians send 10 back. And I think the Russians probably think, they overestimate their own supply lines. They overestimate their ability to accurately target Ukrainian forces. And, as I said before, the Ukrainians, they have less weapon systems and they have less munitions. And so each shell has to count. And so they're using spotters, they're using drones, they're using everything they have at their disposal to make sure that every shell they send over to the Russian side lands. The Russians, however, have kind of a different strategy. Their strategy is more of bombard everything into submission. A lot of their fires almost indirect, I would say, where they're just sending shells into an area and saturating an area with bombardment. So yeah, I definitely think that to a certain degree that a lack of Ukraine's artillery, a lack of their weapon systems, and the Russians know that that they are underarmed, yes, will make them complacent. I think we've probably seen that over the course of the war, and that's why the Ukrainians, I think, have been able to do as well as they have. 12 dead soldiers asks a good question. Says Nemico Network, are all of these shellings by Ukraine on Russia or Russia on Ukraine? Sorry, if you're looking on the map here, if you zoom in, you can see. So whenever you have a shelling that occurs on the other side of, so on the so the red shaded territory is Russian forces held territory, okay? So whenever you see a strike occurring across the border, that was probably sent from Russia. Okay, but then you see a strike occurring over here, you probably know that was sent from Ukraine. So you see Russian strike, Russian strike. This is also Russian strike, Russian strike. Russian strike, Russian strike, Russian strike, Russian strike, Russian strike, Russian strike. So these are all mostly, for the most part, Russian strikes that are occurring, again, from Russian-held territory over onto Ukrainian-held territory. But that doesn't mean that Ukraine isn't firing back, because they are. Now, see, the thing is that the entities that report these strikes that are on Ukrainian-held territory, it's much easier for them to report these strikes to open source intelligence resources like Live UAMap. It's a lot harder to report and get confirmed reports, say, like on these strikes that occurred in Luhansk. Usually these come from either separatists, okay, people that are living in these areas that they see these explosions happening at night and they take a video with their cell phone, they upload it, and then it's a Ukrainian somewhere that then takes that information, geolocates it, uses things like NASA Firms map to say, hey, yep, there's fires burning there, we know these strikes occurred there, and they're able to geolocate it with the camera footage, and then we're able to say, hey, okay, yeah, strikes happened here. But it's a lot easier for these resources like Live UAMap to track the strikes that are happening on Ukrainian territory, because the Ukrainians have freedom of press, they have freedom of the information to be able to get that information out to these platforms. Okay, so I think there's another reason why we see almost a majority of these strikes on the maps coming from Russian territory. But we do see a lot of strikes that are taken out by the Ukrainians onto Russian territory. Again, thank you to everybody that tuned in for tonight's live report. As always, it's really awesome to have you guys tuning in to get informed on what's going on in Ukraine. I'm actually planning kind of a shift in the way we do these reports going forward. We're going to finish out this week with our standard every night reports, but then I'm going to probably be switching up our format a little bit going forward, because now as the conflict has expanded outside of Ukraine to the Baltic states, to Moldova, not directly but indirectly, of course, as we've seen with the situation with Lithuania and Kaliningrad, with Transnistria, Moldova, strikes happening on Russian territory, the situation with China, Taiwan. I've had a lot of requests on covering some of these more broad issues. And so in the future, I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing it this week, next week. It might even take another month for me to get this going. But I'm planning to shift these reports. It's going to go from being our Ukraine nightly report to I'm going to be doing what's called basically the Situation Room intelligence update, okay, or a situation update, all right? And so we'll be covering, at the top of the hour, of course, we'll cover, the first thing we're going to cover is the Ukraine war, as always, okay? As long as this war is going on, it takes the priority, okay? But I also want to be able to cover some of the other topics that are going on, things like that are happening between Russia and Iran, things that are happening between Russia and China, the situation with Taiwan, the global economic situation, and other things of interest, okay? So it's going to be like a general open source intelligence report, okay? So not just focusing on Ukraine, but we will also shift focus onto other topics that are indirectly related some would argue, but are of interest to us. We're going to be switching to that in the future here, but for now, we'll be continuing with our weeknight reports every night, reporting on the Ukraine war, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 3 a.m. Ukraine time, and of course, we upload them to the YouTube channel as soon as they're done live here. So if you miss out on them, you can always check the YouTube channel for those reports when they are uploaded. For a while, I had been labeling these reports with the date. So, like I would say, Ukraine war report for June 7th or whatever. We're now going to be switching to basically tracking the war per day. So again, today was day 139 that the war has been going on. So for the Ukrainian war reports, those will be considered. We'll be counting them by the day that the war has been going on. For those general intelligence reports, we'll be, of course, we'll be using a date for marking those. But yeah, again, those are coming down the pipeline in the future. I haven't got all of that stuff hammered down yet. But again, we're going to be expanding the Ukraine Situation Room reports that you're watching right now. Outside of Ukraine, it'll be a general open source intelligence report for all topics of interest, all global threats of interest. Okay? And so that way we'll be able to cover a lot of other things, and I'll be able to talk about how things tie in together and how things are kind of related. How like some of the geopolitical moves being made by China are directly related to what's going on in Russia, etc. Okay, and so I very much look forward to doing that coming up in the future. But don't be mistaken, our Ukraine war reports will be continuing for the indefinite future again until this war comes to a close. If you guys are looking for any of our sources, any of our links, any of that sort of stuff, you can find them in the description below. If you can't find something on the description, you can find it on the Discord server. Again, that's discord.gg/Nemico. You can find an invite link to that in the description below. Everybody is welcome to join over there. It's a wonderful community that we have. It's slowed down a little bit since the start of the war. In the first month or two of the war, we had a very, very active voice chat in the general chat, which was completely unsustainable, as we had, sometimes upwards of 100 people in our one general chat voice channel. That was mostly due to, just the hype that occurred during that first month or two of the war. Now that voice channel has slowed down a lot, but don't be mistaken, our text channels over there on the Discord server are still active almost every hour of the day. So if you're looking for a very excellent resource on updates, almost instantaneous updates, instantaneous discussion, speculation, etc., on the Ukrainian war, and not just the Ukrainian war, but the global security situation, you can find that information over on the Discord server. You can join those discussions over on the Discord server. So people were asking about future open panel discussions. We actually do have a few that I've been looking to get going here in the coming weeks and months. So we do plan to have a few more open panel discussions for you guys on the situation in Ukraine. So I'll be getting some of those coming at you guys down the pipeline. I have a lot of other video content coming at you guys as well. We have our 10-year anniversary special and a 50,000 subscriber special, which I was supposed to be bringing you guys on the 4th of July, but that got canceled due to rain and some technical difficulties we were having on our end. But I got some really cool video content coming your guys' way in the coming weeks. Some stuff not Ukraine war related, but some other stuff that we can get our minds off of it and decompress on. So I very much look forward to bringing you guys some of that content. So I'm really pumped to bring you that. After this report is done, don't go anywhere, because we have the 24/7 cam stream, the Ukrainian data/cam stream, up on screen for you guys as soon as this is done. That way you guys can keep up to date with our live UA map reports. They refresh every 5 minutes or so. So you can see when new news comes in. You'll be able to track when air raid alerts go off in the live chat. You can take a look at the cameras as they cycle through and get refreshed automatically to be able to take a look at, if a town is being shelled or when certain events are occurring there. We also have our flight radar systems up, so you can see what the aircraft situation looks like above Ukrainian airspace. So that's also a very valuable asset. I'll be making some changes as as usual, I like to keep that that layout fresh, and I like to try new things occasionally. So I'll be changing that occasionally in the coming weeks here. But don't go anywhere. We'll be putting that up for you guys on screen as soon as this is done. If you guys haven't already, please hit that like button. It's the best way to get this information out to more people, get that algorithm's attention. Share this stream. It's the best way to, again, get this information out into the minds of more people. It's extremely important that we do so, that we spread this information around, that we put pressure on our local politicians to continue to send aid to Ukraine, because if we don't want this situation to get worse, that's what we need to do. We need to continue to provide aid to the Ukrainian military, to the Ukrainians, and make sure that they are able to bring this war to a conclusion. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Best way to get notified when new streams and videos go live. If you're not getting notified when new videos or streams go live, make sure to check back onto the YouTube channel or check the announcements channel over there on the Discord server to know when we are going live. Every weekday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can always find the reports uploaded to the YouTube channel a few hours after. Okay, I know a few of you, I think 66% of you said that you weren't getting notified even though you had clicked the notification bell and clicked the all button. So I'll be in contact with YouTube, and we'll be seeing if we can get that mitigated, because I definitely want to make sure you guys are getting notified when our new content goes live on the channel. All right, guys, until further notice, until next time, you guys have been watching Nemico Network.
Something that will change our daily lives.